This is number 2 in our views of old Latrobe, how Latrobe came about, and various things about its history. This map was made about 16 years after Oliver Barnes laid out the town. And you can see that in those 16 years, it has grown. Right in this corner of the Loyal Hannah is what was then Chambers Mill. Before Latrobe ever existed as a town, the area was known as Chambers Mill. I've simply put this on a map of Latrobe to show how Latrobe as it was laid out relates to Latrobe as it is now. The yellow area is what Oliver Barnes laid out in 1851. Now here I'm trying to show how the origin of Latrobe relates to Derry Township. This is Derry Township. And Latrobe, as Oliver Barnes laid it out, was simply a little corner of Derry Township bounded by the Loyal Hannah going by. And they ran the new Pennsylvania Railroad right through the middle. In this, I'm trying to show how J. Edgar Thompson got his railroad into Pittsburgh. This was not an easy area to go through. A lot of this hill and dale kind of stuff. What he did was he followed the water courses, this being Chestnut Ridge, the Conemaugh Water Gap, and then he followed McGee Run. Derry was established out here. Soxman Run was followed until it flowed into the Loyal Hannah. And at that point, Oliver Barnes decided it would be a good place for a town. And that's how Latrobe came about. And you see the railroad went on through Beatty, which we'll get a look at, on through Greensburg, and then following Brush Creek, on into Turtle Creek, on into Pittsburgh. Now, before Latrobe or St. Vincent or much of anything out there was founded or thought about, this guy bought a farm out there. After the Revolution, William Findlay bought a farm that would have laid between what became St. Vincent and Latrobe. He was an Irish immigrant who fought in the American Revolution on the side of his new country, America. He was a captain by the end of the Revolution and a well thought of person. He became the first United States congressman from Westmoreland County. He's buried out at Beatty Cemetery, not Beatty, or rather I should say Unity Cemetery. This is very close to Beatty. He died in 1821. And the mill out there, which predated Latrobe, was originally Findlay's mill. And then in 1839, Chambers bought it. This is the chapel out at Unity Cemetery where William Findlay was buried. On the map, this is Latrobe over here. This is where Chambers Mill used to be. Over here, that is Unity Cemetery. That's where Findlay and a lot of other early people were buried. This is Beatty. We'll get a look at this. Over here is St. Vincent. William Findlay's farm was in between St. Vincent and Latrobe. This was William Chambers. He bought the mill that gave a name to the place, Chambers Mill, before it had the name Latrobe. This is a very old and very badly damaged photo of Chambers Mill. This is the Loyal Hannah going by right here, and you can see it coming down over what could be the dam there. There was a water wheel that turned grinding stones, that ground wheat and other grain. It also had a sawmill to turn logs into lumber. This is what we're looking at right here on this bend in the Loyalhanna. That was Chambers Mill, previously Findlay's Mill. Next, we'll see a few things up here at St. Vincent. This was a very, very early woodcut of old St. Vincent. And things looked that way when this woodcut was made in the 1800s. In the foreground, you see St. Vincent Mill, built in 1854, which is frankly still there, surprisingly. This building here was the brewery. Now, to give a bit more exactness to this, I got a Sanborn map from 1892. This is your north orientation here, north. This is St. Vincent Mill, which is still there. Originally, it was not just a grist mill, it was also a sawmill. And this shows the relationship of the brewery, which is now gone. I did this etching to show old St. Vincent. Up here on the hill is the beginnings of the quadrangle, the old clock tower. Over here was old Sauerkraut Tower, which provided water. That was a water tank in the top. In the foreground, we have St. Vincent Mill, which is still there. Down here is the malt house, which provided malt, which was used over at the brewery over here. The malt house and the brewery are both gone. Gossip has it that neighbors over at St. Vincent were jealous during Depression, not Depression during, it was Depression times too, but during the time of Prohibition, that St. Vincent was making beer and no one else was supposed to have any. And it was burnt down one cold January night. Again, this is St. Vincent, the brewery, the malt house, the mill. We're down here in this corner. Up here was Beatty, right along the railroad. See, this is the railroad that was being put in. This area up here, Beatty, was a stop on the railroad. In fact, when St. Vincent was first founded, its address was not Latrobe, its address was Beatty. Beatty was a little stop on the railroad. This is what it looked like. Railroad station and the Beatty's house out here. It was a Beatty's farm. In the winter of 1851 to 1852, this is as far as the railroad went. During that winter, the railroad would come this far, coming out of Latrobe, and stop and leave the people off. A stagecoach would take them a good many miles into Turtle Creek, where they would catch the train to come into Pittsburgh. By the end of 1852, the railroad was up and running. They had completed the section of track that they were working on between Beatty's Inn and out toward Turtle Creek and through Greensburg. I think that's enough for now, and we'll see you again when we do number 3. Bye now.